Hey, and welcome back to the Growing Pains podcast. I'm your host, Alyson Caffrey, and today I sit down with Jahraus. And Dylan is a seasoned e-commerce entrepreneur with 10 plus years experience. She's transformed from corporate e-commerce into scaling e-commerce brands. Her e-commerce acumen fueled an Etsy venture, quickly exceeding $1 million in profit before expanding to Amazon and Shopify. In 2022, Dylan launched the Ultimate Etsy course, swiftly enrolling 3,000 plus students. So, guys, like she is beyond pro at this. Anchored in authentic e commerce strategies, this program delivers tangible results. She has had her student achievements at over $28 million in revenue. She has a top Etsy podcast, Etsy Seller Success. And it is just so incredibly valuable to get to know her, her story. Her family is in the military, just like mine was. And it's incredible to hear about all of the different ventures. She's recently found herself inside of software. And so I loved that this multi-passionate, super incredibly smart and driven mom was talking about all of the different things that she's involved in. I hope you guys really enjoy this conversation with Dylan, and I'll see you inside. Dylan, welcome to Growing Pains. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Alyson. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, so we were shooting the breeze before we pressed record, and you're in San Diego and also a military spouse, which is so exciting. I'm a former military spouse myself. But for the folks listening, tell us a little bit about your family that you have at home and the business that you run.
Yeah, so I've been married for 8 years. My husband's in the Navy, and we had our first son 7 years ago. So he's 7. It's funny, he's like a spitting image of me. And then our second one, he's like definitely more my husband. So our second son he's just turned 3. So we have a 3-year-old, 7-year-old, 2 boys. Luckily, they go to school close by, and we make that work, but it's chaotic. Boys, I always wanted to be a girl mom. I was collecting all these like girl outfits and everything. And then 2 boys, and it's crazy, but it's fun, I would say.
Oh, that's amazing. I think like there is something different. The dynamic is different between like boy parents and girl parents. Like I'm a boy mom myself. I've got 2 little boys at home too. And like I always just feel like I need to wear a helmet like whenever I jump into a situation. They're just always like dive bombing off of everything and like smashing stuff together. Like they can't play with things the way that they were meant to be played with. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have I somehow ordered these bouncy balls. You blow them up, kind of like lightweight kickballs. I ordered a pack of 7 from Amazon. So these things are like bouncing off of our ceiling and our walls.
That's
And
amazing.
they love soccer. It keeps them busy. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. Tell me about your business. I would love to learn a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah. So I was in corporate America right out of college, worked in corporate e-commerce. But then when I married my husband, you move so much. So for
Yeah.
us, once it was like we were only someplace for 6 months, and you can't really build your career in that way. And that was pre-COVID. So not as remote back then. So I basically started an Etsy shop when we first got married, applied everything from corporate e-commerce to that. Didn't make a sale for the first 2 months, but then by month 4, we're making over 10,000 a month. And then we got to 1 million in profit within the first 5 years. So that was the Etsy shop side of things. And then 2 years ago, I started teaching this. And I started a YouTube channel. I had both kids at the time. So my youngest was like 1. And we basically started just teaching Etsy. I started building the course out, getting students. And now, a couple years later, we have about 3,500 Etsy sellers we work with. My team is about 37 people, and we do 7 figures a month. So it grew fast, but yeah, it was a little chaotic.
Oh, I bet. What made you
Yeah.
make the move from having your own super successful Etsy store to educating people about how to do this?
Yeah. So a couple things. One, honestly, was a health thing. When I was making my product, because it's all handmade, I'm standing at this table all day for like 14 to 16 hours a day making this stuff. I ended up getting vascular disease in my legs, which is basically
Oh
where
my goodness.
the blood flows down, but not back up. So then your veins, like they're just not moving the blood as well. And I had to it was like a 4-hour surgery. And then I kept working in that way. it came back and I realized this is not sustainable. It's not worth it. So I hired out all of Etsy to a military spouse to do production. And then that got me a lot of time back. And people were asking, how are you doing this? How are you making more than your husband? And that's when I started teaching because I saw no one with corporate experience and, corporate e-commerce principles is teaching Etsy online.
Yeah, I love that. I think, well, first of all, good for you for noticing that it was a health like you couldn't sustain because I think a lot of folks, they just wait too long, right? They wait until they have to kind of like hang everything up in order to actually move forward, or they'll shut the business down. So it's great that you were able to figure out how to keep that going. What about the kids? They were probably super young at the time too. Were you like expecting during that time?
Yeah. So I started the shop when I was pregnant. Well, right before I was pregnant with my first. And I was trying to get these, corporate job offers. I was doing all these interviews, finally got like my dream job offer around Christmas. And that was the week I found out I was pregnant. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn down the corporate job and I'm going to go all in on Etsy. So fast forward, 9 months, I have the little ergo carrier on, I have my hot glue gun, and I'm like cranking out orders with my little son attached to me. And it was that way until I finally hired help, which I always waited too long to hire help, but hired a part-time nanny and then more full-time help.
I feel like, isn't that true? Moms always wait. What was the thing that made you finally hire help or like trust somebody to either be with your business or be with your baby?
I would say when the sleep deprivation really hit, I was going to lose my mind. I told my husband, I remember, I think I'm going to die. If I don't get sleep, I actually think I'm going to die. And I realized why they use sleep deprivation in torture methods. Like it made sense. So much sense.
Yeah.
And then the newborn stage, right? They're kind of, still and it's fine to have them there. But then once they are moving, like there is no getting things done for
Mm-mm.
like an hour block. So I just realized at this stage, like he's going to benefit from some more interaction, some more people, socialization, and I can still have him right here, but at least my hands are free. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what I did. Yeah.
What about the military? Like when my business was like taking off, I remember we had a conversation. My husband's contract was up. He did like a 6-year aviation contract. And I was like, hey, it doesn't like super make sense for you to stay in the military. But like some women I've spoke with either on the podcast or friends of mine who have started companies and work for themselves because they're a military spouse, right? They have to be location independent. A lot of them still have their spouses in the military. So like what's that conversation like for y'all? And like how often is he away? Like how does that dynamic play into having and owning a business and having 2 kids at home?
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up because that is the conversation we have every year. It's, are we going to stay in? Are we going to stay
Yeah.
in? And he basically he was out on a submarine. So he's a submarine officer. We'd go
Mm.
underway, literally no email for months, no contact, which as a business owner, right? Like he's my sounding board. Like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. Yeah. So nothing for months. And then after 2020, he moved into a different role where he no longer goes underway on the submarine, which is great for us as a family. And since I've been doing coaching, which is like, just such a larger scale, he has not
Mhm.
been gone, thank God. But he just put in his resignation, actually. Yeah. Let's see.
Wow.
So he officially his job will be ending in a month and then he's like officially out of the military in June.
Wow. Congratulations. Well, early congratulations because that's an exciting time.
It is exciting, but he'll be hitting 15 years, which
Mhm.
5 years until you get that retirement package and people do not understand. Yeah.
It's hard. And I said that to Steve too. So like when he got out, there was tons of like contracting positions like overseas and things. And these military contractors, this is a great way if like you don't take the retirement package, right? And if you just do 4 or 6 years, you can make a ton of money in a short period of time, a year or two contract, and you just go overseas. And we talked about doing that forever. He was like, I know for sure I don't want to retire. All of his buddies were going overseas. And I said to him, I was like, look, if we do the math here in terms of like how much we would be making and how much I would be, bringing into the family if I didn't have, like, if I had the support at home too, like what we could create. It just is such a different conversation than like the traditional retirement package or the traditional 2 or 5 year contracting gig. I
Yeah.
think it's really important to think about like the possibility and infinite scalability of some of these things we can do online. So yeah, I totally understand being misunderstood, but we also sat down and did the math and we were like, it just doesn't make sense. Can you just hang at home with the kids? And he was like, oh, totally.
Yeah. So your husband right now, what is he doing? Is he
He's home with
fully?
our kiddos.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's home with our kiddos. He's been home since he left the military. He did a 1 year farming and regenerative like practices program in 2023 because we want to start our own ranch out here in Colorado. And he'll be working and running that and like dealing with the livestock and all the infrastructure and things. So he's about to enter into another really busy season of like life and work, but it's going to
Mhm.
be like on our terms for us
Yeah.
building our homestead and ranch, which is going to be exciting. So he's looking forward to that. Most of his time is spent right now either with the kids. We're actually rebuilding an old car too. So he does that because he was a mechanic in the military. So, like, things like that. I think it's been really fun to have him have like other projects and things like outside of the kiddos. And our nanny comes about 12 hours a week.
Nice.
So he gets like that time for him to like work on projects and things. And then when he was in school, it was more full time. So we just split. So like he would go to school and then I just worked when the nanny was here and then kind of backed out. But honestly, I'm telling you, getting out of the military is a whole different ballgame. It's like a different way of life. And I think like having something for my husband to like do outside of just, being with the kiddos and things. I mean, it's the same with us, right? I mean, we need our passion, we need our excitement, we need to like exercise our creativity and our brains outside of being a parent. And I firmly believe that that helps us come back to being a mom like much stronger.
Yeah.
So it's the same with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. I also heard people kind of compare it to retiring. Like, you don't want to retire and then have all this time on your hands and not have some plan or purpose or reason to
Mhm.
wake up in the morning. So, Wes, my husband, his name's Wes, he's looking at real estate. We like to do rental properties and renovations. So, I think
Mhm.
that is the direction he would probably want to be going.
Oh, that's amazing. And honestly, like rentals are super, if he's handy, like
Mhm.
that's the biggest expense, right? In terms of like fixing things and getting people in. So I feel like that would be a shoe in. And honestly, we've also discussed building our real estate portfolio. But I think it's just going to be so fun. Like you guys will be able to have a blank space to create whatever you feel like you want to inside of your schedule, which is
Yeah.
like freeing and also a lot of pressure, right? I was talking with a mom on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, she's like, it's hard when you are the person who can just decide everything. And I think that was true after Steve and I got out of the military because I started working for myself, similar situation. We moved from Colorado to Tennessee and I put my resignation in at my 9 to 5. I was operations manager at a PR firm and we moved over. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I don't know what to do now. Like, should I start looking for another job? And then I started getting phone calls like, can you do for me what you did for this guy over here? And then all of a sudden I was like sending my first invoice. And I always say I was like accidentally an entrepreneur or accidentally a business owner. And from there, it just grew. But that was 7 years ago. And at this point in life, our life looks so much different because we were in the military. Like I couldn't go anywhere, right? We weren't moving anywhere. We were, very location independent in terms of my work, but this is where he was stationed, right? But
Yeah.
then when he got out, we were kind of like floundering a little bit because we were like, oh, well, now we can live anywhere. So, of
Mhm.
course, we moved back home because our whole family was expecting that we would move back home. And then, years ago when we got back, we were like, are we really trying to be here? So it's hard because you don't have like anything to blame anymore, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't have, I'm stationed here or any of that other stuff. It's just like what you guys want to do. And you need to be able to like confidently be like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what I want to do. So there's a new season that y'all are about to enter where you're like, okay, the military is not the reason anymore. It's going to be, whatever we feel like. So I'm interested. Do you guys feel like you're going to stay in San Diego?
Oh my gosh. So this is literally the daily conversation. It is no, seriously, night and morning and throughout the day because it's November right now. We have to sign the kids up for school in
Yeah.
February, basically. And we have no clue what state we're going to end up in. And that is like, it's at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, detached. All right, we will be where we're going to be. It's not, nothing's permanent.
Yeah.
And it's is not like a lifelong decision, but you're right. Like when you have a career or like an employer pulling you to places, that's your excuse. Okay, they're
Hmm.
basically deciding for you. But now when it comes down to, okay, what do you want? For me, it's like, oh, I feel like we should go back to Minnesota where my family is. My parents are older. I have a disabled sister, and then he's more interested in let's go someplace with a better tax situation. So we're
Yeah.
definitely not staying in California. I will say that it's not the best place for the business for sure, and
Yeah.
we are not California residents. I like to put that out there. We are Washington residents where we don't pay
Ah.
no income tax.
That's honestly, it's so interesting too. And you mentioned because that was one of the reasons why we picked Colorado Springs because the counties, they do matter, right? They do matter when it comes to taxes and all the different things. And Colorado is not amazing. Like we're paying pretty similar taxes that we were paying like on the East Coast, which is kind of crazy in terms of like where we are.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of considerations like that. I mean, especially if you guys are in a position where, you guys are earning an income that makes a big difference with, some of the formations of the business and how you guys structure that. I've known a lot of folks, even especially through COVID, who like
Mhm.
left California and they're moving to like Texas and Tennessee and South Carolina, where the tax structure is like really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And I feel like, kind of live in that little margin where when we were financially planning, agriculture is like a really big one that like kind of gets you out of those massive tax brackets. So we
Yeah.
were like, oh, this is great. We can kind of like shelter some stuff. So that's like our plan because we are like, if you make a certain amount of money and like sales from farming and all these things on your land, like you can kind of skate past that. And I know a lot of states do that too. It's been really nice to like, I don't know, think about that and like dream up what our perfect situation would be. But yeah, it is a hard decision, I will say. And honestly, Dylan, sometimes even being here in Colorado, we're super excited about it. We just freshly made our move. We still look back and we're like, okay, did we make the right decision? Like, sometimes, you make a decision that you feel like is right for you and like mostly what you're doing, but sometimes it's just the best decision that you can make at the time and nothing's permanent. So if you guys go wherever it is you go and you're like, oh, this isn't for us, you can always make a shift, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's weird because, having kids too, especially military kids, they're used to moving. But luckily, I mean, we've been in San Diego almost the whole time. So they've had
Uh,
stability. Yeah. But, it's a decision. It's almost like making a decision for your business and for your kids. And then sometimes it's not even making a decision for yourself as much because you're prioritizing like everyone in the situation more than you. And you kinda
mhm.
lose, like, the idea it's easy to lose for me at least. Okay, what do you really want yourself? Does it matter? Or does what matters for the kids and the business, is that more important?
Mm.
That's just those are some of the thoughts that I have, yeah.
I appreciate that perspective because honestly, I bet there's moms listening and I feel similarly. When we were making the decision, it was like, what's best for the kids and what's best for like what we want to do with life, like our life path, right? Like how we want to build and who we want to serve. So that was a challenge. I wonder, like, so we've been talking about this and I'm curious your thoughts, especially when you guys are talking about like real estate portfolio and stuff. Like, would you
Yeah.
guys have multiple residences? Like, could you have something by your parents and then also your primary living place?
Yeah, I think that's definitely gonna be part of it. even if no matter where we were full time, because even people in Minnesota, they like to have a place, usually Florida, it ends up being something like that. So I
Mhm.
think we will have multiple. I think that'll make sense just as a place to go to do a short term rental or something with it when we're not there. Those are definitely options. It's almost like when you have success, you have more options, but it's also like bigger levels, bigger devils.
I
Yeah.
totally understand. And, it's the same thing, right? Like you're in the driver's seat. So it's not like, oh, my job is here. And so we need to be here. And I agree with you. Like the decisions, they get smaller and less frequent, right? But I don't know, as you open up more options, it does get more complicated.
Yeah.
What about homeschool? Have you guys thought about like doing that in interim, like as you guys move?
Mm. So this is interesting. My husband was homeschooled through high school. And
Really?
yes, which is really rare, I think.
Yeah. I feel like it's usually the opposite. It's like early and then they send to high school.
Yes, right. Yeah, so his mom, she went to law school in I think it was Missouri, and they moved to Hawaii. His dad's a doctor, and they basically the schools there are not very good in Hilo, Hawaii. So they decided to homeschool the 3 kids through high school, and I told him when we met, I was like, "Just so you know, I can't do that." I feel like I can't homeschool them myself. Wait, do you homeschool?
Our kids are like, so Frank is 4. We're like just really starting to do the homeschool thing. And we've opted for a co op next year.
Oh,
So when
yeah.
he actually starts going, so it's like 2 or 3 days a week, you can pick it. And they do like all the ancillary stuff. So they'll do
Mhm.
like language, they'll do physical education. And one other thing that I'm forgetting right now, but we do like math, science, reading
Okay,
at
okay.
home, like the core subjects.
Yeah. Now are you doing that yourself, or is your husband doing that, or how does that work?
Right now, we don't have it super structured, frankly, Dylan, because my biggest thing right now with Frank, our son, and Jack to a certain degree, but he's still young. He's like, he's going to be 3 in March. And for the most part, right now, it's like, can they do the basics, right? Like,
Mm,
can we identify all the stuff? And Frank's been doing really good with like tracing letters and numbers and
mhm,
those types of things. So, for the most part, like, I care now, and this might be controversial because I haven't really like dove deep into homeschool stuff. In fact, I just reached out to a friend of mine the other day and I was like, she's homeschooled all 5 of her kids the whole time. And I
uh-huh,
was like, hey, can you send me like the best books that you've read for parents, like on homeschooling? Cause I just want to make sure like our philosophies and our curriculum are set up properly. But the big thing that I'm worried about now is like, do they feel like they can problem solve without like losing themselves emotionally, right? Like I think like whenever I see or less frequently now, but like when I used to see Frank like trying to solve something, whether it was a toy or a puzzle or whatever, and he would like lose it emotionally, like that to me is like this is a teaching moment, an early stage teaching moment. Same thing with like communication with adults. Like he says,
mhm,
excuse me when he talks to people. Like I'm thinking like those types of life and personality and interpersonal skills feel
mhm,
top of list for like me and Steve right now. And then I'm sure as they get older and they start to read and as they start to write and as they start to do some of the basic math skills and things like that will fall into place through a curriculum and in partnership with a co-op. So the long-winded way of answering your question is no, we don't have like a crazy curriculum. We also are, I don't know, just kind of going with the flow on it a little
yeah,
bit because I feel like there's a lot of pressure, right? Like I feel
yeah.
pressure. I'm like, wait a second, I'm gonna like maybe take on some of the schooling, and it feels sometimes overwhelming.
That's amazing. I know the outcome is great for homeschooling.
Yeah,
Like
like
I yeah,
statistically.
like, outcome is gonna be great. It's hard, but I mean,
Yeah.
everything's hard. Sending like, I have a parent-teacher conference today because my child can't pay attention. Everything's hard. Either way is hard. You just wanna, kinda choose which one's best for your family, I guess. Yeah,
I feel
it's
like in transition too, it could be helpful for y'all to like take a portion of school. And even like friends of mine, the same friends who homeschooled their kiddos, they like packed everything up. They live in Arizona and they sold their place and they moved to Hawaii for a year. And they were just like, we're just gonna go with the flow, like not crazy curriculum. And some of their kids were older. Like they were
yeah,
like, but they felt like they would learn more from just being able to experience doing something like that as a family. So I think like take what's working for others and then just put a little asterisk by it and figure out like what works best for you guys. And I'm super new in this process. So like I have no idea what to expect. Like
But that's good. They're early because I know some people like they'll pull their kids out of school in 5th grade and start homeschooling. And then it's like, you're both jumping in to the deep end, the child and the parents. And it's a little more jarring versus starting this way. Like it's going to be a little smoother, I bet. Yeah.
perhaps, I don't know, we'll see. I wonder like your older son, your 7-year-old, he's sure has friends and things like that. Is that a consideration for you guys?
Yeah, he's such an outgoing child. Like, he's this kid where we're walking through the parking lot, he's, like, yelling at kids like, hey, Jackson. Hey, Will." Like, and they're all,
I love it.
"Cameron," and I that was not me, so I'm, like, living vicariously through him, like, "I'm so proud of you." I was the shy, like, timid girl. So
Mhm,
that's great for him, and he's super into sports, which I know you can still do when you homeschool, like, there's still ways to do that. So
mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I think the key here in any like big life transition, especially this one that we're in, is not looking at a permanent thing and not feeling like this is it forever. And just, it's okay to try something for a year and 2 years and not plan so far ahead for the family. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like we're making these 20-year decisions and we don't need to be.
It's hard though, right? Like as a couple to not be like, I don't know, thinking 10, 20 years in advance. We just did the same thing. We've been married for 10 years. We celebrated our 10-year in August. And it was a very prompting time, right? We were like, oh, well, the last 10 years have been like this. And so what do the next 10 years look like? And instead, I think in this time of transition, I totally agree with you. We've been thinking like in 2-year spurts. What is this going to be like for the next 2 years? But until we like really purchase like a piece of land that we know we're going to stay on for a while, then we can start doing the like 10-year thing. Cause I
Yeah.
remember when we were early on and, being married and early in the military, I mean, you could only plan 6 months, maybe 9 in advance. Like it was just so wild. So the shift, I think, has been crazy.
I can't imagine. It's like shocking to the system and the processes in your marriage and your family have been one way. And now it's like all of a sudden you have to create new ones together. Because you got married when he was in the military or
Just before.
just before. Okay. So your
Yeah.
most of your marriage had been
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
wild for sure. It was good. We did it, I think, okay. Like, Steve got out when was the month before Frank was born. So just a couple of weeks. So he is like, we've never done parenting in military, which I actually think was great because we started trying when we were in the military and we figured it would be great. And then hindsight is always 2020, right? Like we were like, oh yeah, we really want to have a family. And then Frank came like a month after Steve had gotten out, or really it was a couple weeks after he got out. And it was just so nice to like have him home and be able to just focus on that and not have to worry about like him being gone because he was gone on like 3-month stints for
Mm.
a long time. And
Yeah.
so he was probably there 50-50 like most
Okay.
of the time that we were in the military. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was challenging because I mean, you see a lot of families do it, right? And you're like, oh, these folks can do it. Like, surely we can do it. We know we want to have a family. But it was nice, honestly, to wait. The timing ended up working out really well. But yeah, it's hard, right? It's hard to figure that out. It's hard to work for yourself. It's hard
Yeah.
to, I don't know, do all the things that I don't know you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Now,
But
I have a question. Were you the breadwinner when he was in the military, or how did that
we
work out?
switched. So when he was in the military, I started working for myself and I quickly became the one who was making more. And that was like a welcome and excited thing. Like we didn't have any kids. We were like, we bought our house for like $180,000, I remember. And I was just like, this is great. Like we really are doing this. And like, I don't know how maybe you grew up, but like my mom grew up super poor and was in a position where she was like, the only way to make money is to save money. And she's an accountant and she's a corporate executive and she does like business auditing for a living. And so like it was all about the money and it was all about like whatever you spent. And when we started, like when I started working for myself, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a blue ocean. Like it doesn't, like, in some cases, especially early on, I was like with no kids and a super low mortgage payment and all the stuff. I was like, it doesn't matter what I spend. I was like, as long as I keep marketing, like we'll be fine. Like everything's going to be great. And it super was like that. Of course, I've ratcheted back a little while and all the things, but like, it was just so interesting, I think, in the beginning to see this like big blue ocean. And the more that I was learning about working for myself, and a lot of folks were like, oh, you're taking a huge risk. This is a huge risk, having Steve get out of the military and you guys, you working for yourself and you building this business. Everybody was trying to understand what I exactly did. And it was hard to like describe. So we did that. We switched. So when he got out of the military, I have been and ever since the kind of sole income of our family. And it's worked out great because truthfully, the first like 4 years of him being in the military, I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. I was making, less than he was making. So he kind of gave me that runway to
Yeah.
be able to figure out what I wanted to do and all that stuff. And so honestly, when it came time to switch, I was just like, I'm grateful I could give it back. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
so excited that I could give you the space to be like, what do I want to do? And then that's when like he went back to school and when he started like really getting into regenerative farming. And one of the reasons why now we're here in Colorado and we're looking to purchase some land. So like, I feel like I gave him that like padding or that space to
Good.
be like, okay, this is what I want to do next. So we always joke that we like use each other like rungs on a ladder. We're just like
Yeah.
always growing, but like some seasons it's like me working super hard. And honestly, I'm about to enter into a season where I literally said to him yesterday, I was like, if you want to start to take front stage on like being out and working, I was like, we can start to make that transition over the next year because, like, honestly, my team looks really great. Everybody's super wonderful. I've got a lot of leverage in a lot of the things that we do. And, it's just been something where I think he's excited and eager to like have a
Yeah.
big project. Like, I think he's really, really excited to build something for himself. So, yeah, like, I don't know, maybe that's helpful. Like, you guys can
It
just
is.
switch on and
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, because it's the same way, like, he gave me the space to start something, and
Hmm.
it really scaled up over the last 8 years, and now he's in a position where, like, he doesn't have to work, but I know as a man, like, and the husband he is to me, like, he would want to do something, but
Yeah.
giving him the space to really figure that out, it's a blessing. Did that change the marriage dynamic with you being the only earner?
No.
No?
He, calls himself a trophy husband,
Okay.
like, best case scenario.
Yeah.
He loves it. He, like, hangs out with the kids, and, in the very, very beginning, when the kids were very little
Mhm.
and they needed, like, a lot of mom, and Steve was, like, home with them, like, most of the time, my schedule was more like 50-50. So he has
Mhm.
never really been, like, full-time with the kids where I'm full-time working. I've never had a full-time job, like, since I've been working for myself. But yeah, he jokes, he calls himself a trophy husband. He, he's like our, I always joke, he's like our little health and nutritionist person. So like he makes all the meals. He tells me like literally downstairs earlier, I was like, I think I need to increase my protein. Like, what should we do about that? It's
Yeah.
so fun. So he's leaned in on like the health, nutrition, meals, meal prep, like the whole thing. And honestly, I'm really grateful for that because I remember early on in having Frank, I was like feeling super overwhelmed. I made all the meals and I was working and he
Oh,
was home and I was just like, "Hey, I'm not sure what I need, but like I need like you to help a little bit on like the food side." And ever since then, he like has created the lion's share of meals that we've all put into our body and he
mm,
loves it. Like he's a way better cook than I am. He
yeah.
actually looks forward to it most of the time versus when I would come downstairs, I'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." But then it made me feel like a crappy mom, crappy wife, right? I'm
Mm,
like, "Oh, that you're supposed to make the meals." But I really wasn't enjoying it. I'll here and there I'll get like a bug and I'll get excited to make something specific, but no, honestly, it didn't change our dynamic. I think the important thing too with us is we were always open about it being temporary. So we were like, this is just the space that you get to figure out your next thing. And in the meantime, too, we bought and sold our first house. So he renovated the whole house before we sold it, which was really excellent. And then second house that we bought, he renovated the whole thing too. So like he had projects like through the experience that like we weren't sure if he was going to do forever in terms of like renovating and things, but he was like putting in flooring and painting
Yeah.
walls and changing light fixtures, and he redid our entire kitchen and like put the cabinets in, and it was just something that he could do that was just his thing.
Yeah. Little sweat
Yeah.
equity. That's good to have that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also don't cook though. Don't cook. I don't clean. I don't do laundry. And I'm like unapologetic about it.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that's incredible. So like what was that like for you? Because I remember when we hired our first house manager and I came upstairs to my kids' room and saw all the clothes folded, I like started crying. I was just like, how is this
The
possible?
The laundry thing, that is just, I mean, it's and their clothes are only getting bigger, so it just feels like more loads of
So
laundry,
much.
and everything's dirty and the sports and everything, yeah, so it's life-changing, but the thing is I feel like once you do that, you just can't go back. It's like the time is gone, like, I can't even figure out how to carve out time for that anymore for some reason. If I had to, like, we
You've
could figure
moved
it
on.
out. Yeah, but yeah, you have moved on. But also, I think it's also great to be able to provide work for someone else or to support someone else's small business or themselves as, an entrepreneur. So I feel really good about that. We have a military spouse who comes in 3 days a week and
That's so
does all
nice.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
So is she your nanny too? Or like how does the childcare thing work right now?
Yeah, so I do drop off in the mornings and then my husband picks the kids up at like, between 4 and 5 and then she comes during the day, but like he was gone hunting for a week and just got back last night. Not saying I'm resentful, but I definitely haven't left for a week before, but he got back last night and while he was gone, I just had her come 2 to 5. She'd pick them up, she would do the homework and do all the house stuff and then I just handled dinner. So, I definitely ordered it in. Definitely didn't cook it.
Gotta
Yeah.
be able to be flexible though, right? I honestly, I hear from moms all the time who just feel this like they just feel this guilt, right? They feel the guilt that they're not like doing the laundry and they're not cooking all the meals and they're not even the cleaning of the house. And I think like if you asked your kids, like, do you care if I made this meal or do you just care that I'm sitting with you? I feel like it would be the second, right?
Totally, yeah. So the time and it's better I would rather and I think they would rather have me, like, sit with them and have, like, a nice conversation at dinner and talk about their day versus, like, me being stressed because, the everything's a mess and I don't know how to turn on the stove and it's just dinner ended up terribly. So, yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's okay to, I've we all have different strengths and cooking is not mine, but I can, like, pay for their college if they want it. Me too. That that sounds so bad. I realize how this is coming across, but
It
it's
doesn't.
you don't think it's
It
bad?
doesn't sound bad, no, and you
Okay.
know what I'm saying? I don't it doesn't need to be pay for college, it can even be, like,
Yeah.
create time for incredible family vacations. Like, imagine you guys all, like, go to Italy for 3 weeks, right? Like, that is an opportunity where y'all can all learn and explore a new place and be together and create core memories, like, those types of things, like when I think back on even my childhood, like my mom worked so hard to provide for us. And the times I remember aren't the times where she threw a dinner together for us to have in like at 6 o'clock when she got back from work. It was like us going to Disney. It was like
Mm.
us getting a cabin in Tennessee and like going and being in the woods for 3 or 4 days. Like I remember those times. And those are the times I think that we forget where, if we can hire something out to get our time back and make more money and create these really intentional spaces for our family instead of like getting swept up in the day to day. Because it does, right? It feels like that. It feels like our day is basically a downward spiral after 10 o'clock. Like I always say to everybody, I'm like, my day is basically over after 10. Like that's like everything happens in the morning. I like front load everything. And then all of a sudden it's like you do lunch and then nap and then dinner and then bedtime and bath and like the whole thing. And then it just starts like cascading down. And so like if you're not careful, your day can become like something that you don't even want, like,
Right.
really, really fast.
Right. Yeah, it can happen quickly, and it's a lot of little decisions that make it that way over time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
totally.
Totally.
I love that you've been intentional about it because it sounds like you've like carved out like the things that you are like, okay, these don't make a huge difference, but like spending time with my kids does. Cause I bet you get net a lot of time back.
So much time back. And to the point where now you can't reverse getting that, like having that help. I
Hmm.
can't go back on not having the help because then that's like all the time that I've almost like bought that time with my kids now in a
Yeah,
way. Yeah, exchanging that.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Well, what's on the horizon for you? What are you excited about? When we're chatting now, like we're almost at the end of the year,
Yeah.
2025 is on the horizon, like very close horizon. What's exciting you about the rest of the year, holiday season, and 25?
Yeah. So I'm really excited right now. Well, as of this week, we're just about a week and a half into having our software. We launched a software called Etsio for Etsy sellers. So I'm not a software girl, but I saw a need and and I knew how to find the people who could create the solution. So I'm more of the visionary in that company, but we just launched that. It's going well. And then really some big decisions that I need to take some pressure off of. So that's what I'm going to be working on right now, taking the pressure off of the situation with the move and building the team, getting the right people in place. We just actually hired probably like 9 new people in the last 90 days, which
Oh,
was
that's a
just
lot.
such a spurt. Yeah. And then bringing on a fractional CFO January 1st. So that's going to be a game changer just for being able to look ahead, both for the business and for family. And I'm excited to have that new level and layer of strategy in our life that we haven't had before. So I'm just really excited about that change. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Lots of newness. And hey, 9 hires in 90 days, that's a lot.
It was a bit much. Yeah. So now, yeah, ramping up right now. Exactly.
But I mean, you don't know what you don't know. I think, what was it? I think it was Q1 and Q2. Our team is smaller. I have a team of 16. And we did 3 new hires in Q1 and then 2 new hires in Q2. And then I moved. And our move was like, it just took a little longer than I thought. And so for us, when we did ours, our team grew by like a similar percentage. And it was just like a lot of ancillary stuff to figure out. So we had like good training, good processes, and things like that in place. But then it was like division of labor. We were like, oh, this has always been under one person's job description, but now it's like you do this and you do this.
Yep.
And it was just hard to like discern. The org chart is just different and there's different needs.
Yeah. So who's your right hand in your business?
So my executive assistant, Kelsey, is who I probably collaborate with in terms of like priorities and vision direction, that sort of thing. She does our internal projects for operations agency. And then Lauren, my account director, is, I would say, more like my right hand gal when it comes to like working with our clients, because we have like a traditional agency model.
Yeah.
And she's the one, like, as you know, like when you structure a business that way, like the majority of the cash, the headcount, everything goes to delivering right for clients. And she manages all of that. So I would say like we're pretty heavy on the fulfillment side, pretty light on like the marketing and sales side. So I run the growth side of the business and then she runs the fulfillment side of the business. So pretty traditional, like CEO, COO type of vibe, but just like at a smaller scale.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you
Yeah.
find something that works and allows you to do a big move like that, at the same time, it sounds like a well-oiled machine. Well done.
Yeah, we finally got there. I think over the last 7 years, we've done a lot of different things with our model. And like, I've been coaching for a super long time. So, like, I've been doing a mix of like agency work and then like coaching work specifically on like operations, business models, org chart structure, all those things. But it's like different when you do it for you, right? Like, it's the emotion is in it. And you're like, oh, I feel like it could go like this. And then when I launched Master Maternity Leave, it's a very product based business. We have a digital course and like master classes and things and that kind of thing. And I
Uh-huh.
remember being like, oh, this is way easier. Like, it's way easier. Like, my time is so leveraged. Like, I spend most of that in marketing. So the model, right, is just
Yeah.
totally flipped. So that has also been a learning experience over the last like 2.5 years, is like thinking through what that model is and how we can like front load our marketing and do all those things. So it's been like new and exciting problems to solve, which is kind of nice. I don't know. It's good to like shake it up a little bit.
Yeah. And that means you're
Yeah,
growing. So that's good. Yeah.
totally. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Dylan, this was awesome. I had a great time getting to know you here on the show. And I think like a lot of moms can probably resonate with like just being in a new season, right? Like I feel like generally it feels a little bit like a new season these days. And I think a lot of moms will probably hear what we chatted about and resonate with what you're going through. And if folks want to stay in touch with you, if they want to chat more about what you're doing, if they are an Etsy seller and maybe they want to learn more about your programs, where should they go?
Yeah. So if you need help with Etsy, definitely go to YouTube. We have hundreds of videos, free education for you there. Dylan Jahraus is the channel name. And then Instagram is great as well. So Dylan Jahraus is the Instagram handle. And we're in there. I have a team where we'll chat with you. We'll talk to you about what your goals are and just get to know you through the DMs there.
That is so fantastic. I really appreciate you like carving out some time in your schedule. I know all of us are so busy. Any encouraging words or final things you want to say to any mamas who are listening who are in the thick of growing a business and raising a family?
Yeah, I mean, I want to remind you, you don't have to choose one or the other. Like you absolutely can do both. And I don't believe it's about an equal balance. I think there's different seasons for different priorities, even different parts of your day for different priorities. So you can do this and you were built for this, I would say. Yeah.
Oof. That's excellent advice and a good reminder for us too, especially like going into the holiday season. I feel like it gets so chaotic.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks so much for
Ah,
having me, Allison. This was fun.
yeah, likewise. Thanks, Dylan.